1 week. Oh, it's so exciting. This is such a beautiful and unique offering to the world. So glad that we're here. And it's so exciting to be here in Malaprops too. For me and Becky's got a whole story of here, but just this is, I've lived here for over 20 years and just such a bedrock for downtown, and just thinking about coming here and reading books to my daughter, who's now 17, when she was a little one, and just all the books that I've brought home from here over the years, even before I moved to Asheville. So it's a real honor to be sitting here with y'all at Malaprops. But it's also a great honor to be with Becky. And can y'all hear me in the back when I turn like this? So I have a paralyzed vocal cord, so if you can't hear me, just raise your hand and I'll repeat myself. But Becky, for those of you who don't know the full magnificence of who she is, that she is really like a Becky of all trades. So just an amazing artist. If you can go on her Instagram, or what's your tattoo Instagram?
The Blood Witch.
The Blood Witch, like beautiful tattoo work, and just the ways that I've known Becky over the years. So she's done artwork that we use on our website, the Chestnut School of Herbal Medicine website, and she teaches soil science for my school. So, it's just amazing to have someone who is a singer, who's an amazing artist, who knows so much about folklore and soil science. And y'all, I don't know if you know how rare this is, but the book on witchcraft was so much folklore to have like 357 citations or whatever, way more, thousands. That is unusual. That really speaks to her scholar background and her diligence, and you can really see her diligence throughout this book. So it's just one of the many things that makes this book unique. But yeah, so it's been really fun to watch you over the years, like grow and evolve, and just all the different skills that you have, and expertise and knowledge in your mind. And yeah, so I'm really happy for you.
I have 4 planets in Cancer. I'm so sorry. You're gonna make me cry at least once during this talk. Actually 5, sorry, Courtney. I always forget one. Thank you, Juliet. I feel like I'm trying to remember the first time we met, and I think it was when I cooked for your school, when it still met in person, and I did one of the camp managing positions for Chestnut School, and you let me sit when I wasn't cooking. I would just sit and listen to you teach. You were one of my first herb teachers, and when I started teaching for your school one day after 6 hours of filming, you were like, "Becky, you're really smart." And I was like, "What?" What? I never thought of myself as very smart, and you're like, "You need to get like a PhD or something." Like, what are you doing? I was like, "It's 2015, I don't know." And then I went and got a master's degree, and I dedicated it to you because you were like, "You're a smart person," and I didn't really think that. So thanks. But just casually crying on Tuesday. Oh. Yeah, you are a legend in our town, in the herb world. I feel like there's so many of us, including some people who are here who have studied with you, and you've taught so many people so much, and taught so many of us about how to take care of the plants that live here in the wild communities. That really informed one of my chapters I was most excited about wild tending in my book. So thank you for teaching me so much about that.
Well, so we're a little bit behind, so we'll get started with the first question. What inspired you to write Wild Witchcraft? And really, how does the book stand apart from other books on wildcraft and herbalism and ritual? I have a lot of ideas of how it stands apart, but I want to hear
Oh, wow.
what you think.
That's a hard question. I wrote it because they emailed me and said, will you write this? And I said, money? And they said, yes. And I said, I'll write the book, yes. And that's what happened. It wasn't very romantic. I wasn't like, let me bring forth my child, this book. But interestingly enough, I obsessively stayed up till 2 a.m. almost every night for like 5 years, writing little things for no reason and citing them extensively. And so I had a ton of material already, and I put it all together. And my amazing editor, Natasha Iglesias, who kind of like scouted me at Simon & Schuster, she basically created an outline and said, what do you think about doing a gardening and foraging book and witchcraft and rituals? And I was like, that sounds like my life, so that sounds great. Because usually people just want one section. So I do think it's nice because the book gave me an opportunity to kind of show people what I teach in my hedgecraft class, which is what I do every day, as a witch and as a forager and a folk herbalist. So it's kind of, it felt accurate.
Yeah, it really is a unique combination of topics, and just like the plant profiles and all the history and the folklore, like that is truly unique. But also like your approach to the history of the folklore of Appalachia, like it's very unusual to have a book written by a person of European descent who is really paying homage to the all the folk healers, which in our area includes enslaved peoples and also, of course, the indigenous peoples of this area. And I feel like you do a really good job of exploring like all the beautiful, rich contributions of all those different peoples and how that informed the medicine of this area. And because it is like Becky, describes in the book, like it's often positioned as modern Western herbalism as really just a descendant of European herbalism, but that really misses the mark of all the contributions of, especially like all the like Black granny midwives and all the indigenous people who shared their information with the colonists, and I really feel like you speak to that, and also what to do with that information as a contemporary person of European descent, and you speak to that a lot of like embracing your own traditions and what your ancestors would have done, and just learning more about that. And do you want to speak about that at all?
Yeah. I feel like if you've ever taken a class with me before, like my dear friend Kitty who's here, who I love so much, I feel like a lot of herbal classes I've taken are out of context. I'm like, how do we know the thing? Who said that? Mm-hmm. And I feel like a lot of times it's erased because of colonization and slavery and indigenous genocide. And I do think as herbalists it's important if we use a plant, we say why we know it. And I think that's one thing that is missing, but more and more people know. I'm seeing a shift, and I really love that. And I identify more as a folklorist than I do as an herbalist. I don't see clinical clients. I'd rather teach someone to meet a plant in the wild rather than give them a finished tincture. My tinctures aren't that good. I just pour alcohol over plants and go, goodbye, see you in 3 years. But for me, the folklore is what feeds me as a person who doesn't have strong family connections, doesn't feel connected to I don't really have just good relationships with my family. I feel like this place is my family. And so thinking about, I'm really English and Irish, and I love learning the English and Irish uses of plants, because even if I don't have a granny to teach me that, I know that one of my great-great-grannies did that thing. And so it's very connective without like harming and erasing my like Black and Indigenous siblings. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's a bare minimum also for me to do that. And I'm really excited to keep learning how to like do better about that and be more respectful and ask more questions. And I'm curious like how my book will be received. I feel anxious always, but extra about that. And I'm curious, to get feedback on what that feels like for people to read. I'm imagining I might get some defensive emails about some of my chapters for people like, I can do whatever I want with plants, F you. So we'll see. Pray for me.
Yeah, you might. And you might also really turn a lot of minds and open, people who are already thinking in this vein to think further. And, it really, like you said, it is the bare minimum. It's like, these are the people who walked before us. These are the people who taught us, our ancestors, and and the people who are still here. And they deserve recognition, and it's really like the bare minimum. And so I think it's, the folks who have the backlash, it's just sort of a dying gasp.
Thank you for saying that.
Yes. And so I was really intrigued by, there's a section on cultivating poisonous plants. And, I feel like I'm like a little bit of a conservative herbalist in that I'm really like always concerned about safety. And I have seen more than one person who has been like, had a psychotic break from ingesting datura or Jimson weed. So I've been around a lot of feckless hippies over the years. And so I particularly wanted to, I was like, what is she going to say about the poisonous plants? But I love the way that Becky approached them of like giving some serious caution, like, oh my gosh, where do you remember what Pete was saying? Yeah, so just the way that she described like the madness of that, but I think that's one of the things that makes this book so unique, is like approaching this really rich and important topic of the folklore of these really potent medicinals that really like bridge the, very closely bridge the divide between medicine and poison, and how Becky approached it with like interest and caution. So I'm just going to read this. Okay, so I just love this precaution. None of the information supplied in this section is for anything other than entertainment and historical inquiry. Do not, in caps, attempt to ingest, apply, smoke, or even handle the plants without extreme caution, or a wish for certain death, or a fate worse than being trapped in the mouth of madness. So she did her due diligence there. But okay, those were not the passages that we were going to read, right?
This is great.
So Becky's going to read a passage, page 9,
Just to say something on that, it's funny because I had people message, I won't say who, someone messaged me and said, the one thing about your book is it has poisonous plants in it. Someone could die. I was like, well, did you see the first page? And they're like, no. There's a warning. I don't think people are stupid. I really don't. I know it's dumb, but I don't think
people are very stupid, Jackie. So, I'm sorry.
This explains my long and sordid past. So I do think, though, that being really clear, like as a witch, sometimes there's a lack of caution around certain things because it's like, I'll just spiritually talk to the plant and it won't hurt me. And I'm like, that's accurate. And don't put that in your mouth. So I think both and so I really tried with that. So thank you for seeing that.
I see your both and.
I appreciate it. So this is from the first section. I tried in the beginning of my book to get a history. Anytime I teach a class on herb use, I like to start us kind of grounded in why we know what we know and where we are. And so this is from my section on a short history of folk healers in America. Very short. The history of folk healers in America begins with us deciding on a definition. Folk medicine can be defined as representing a body of belief and practice isolated in various ways from the social and cultural mainstream and intriguingly unaffected by modern knowledge, with which is frequently compared on the apparent presumption that folk and modern are mutually exclusive classifications. American folk medicine begins as a story of indigenous medicine. It starts in the 1500s with the arrival of the Spanish and the enslaved Africans they brought with them. The Spanish used Roman humoral medicine combined with Christian ideologies and eventually melded them with indigenous belief. This was further influenced by largely West African enslaved people who brought their own healing traditions and worldviews with them. When British colonists arrived in North America, they left a medical system that relied upon class stratification and specialization. Apothecaries and surgeons were seen as lower class in comparison to the illustrious university-educated physician. However, enforcing these class differences in a wildly new country was not possible. The lines between medical professions blurred as people met their needs however they could medically. For in America, there were no universities to train physicians or guilds for apothecaries and surgeons. It was not until the 19th century that medical schools and licensure were enforced, thus allowing for folk medical and magical practitioners to take up caring for and curing their neighbors. British colonists had heard tales of the strong, tall, and healthy indigenous people populating the land they were about to arrive upon as uninvited guests. Indigenous medicine was believed to be superior to the medicine they knew at home. So that's just a short section. For me as a historian, because I feel like you can just say that you are one if you want to be. I guess I am one. Thank you. So many college times. So many type of words. But I really love the intersections of all the things that have come together. I always think of Appalachia as like a stool with three legs. One that's indigenous, one that is European, and one that is Black African. And how all those cultures came together is really difficult now to piece out. And I love the challenge of trying to see where those strands go back with plant uses. I think that's safe to say that's my passion in plants. It's those stories. So thanks for asking me to read from that section.
Yeah. So let's see. Oh yeah, the stewarding wild populations of plants, and I think that's awesome that you were excited to write that section. And I feel like this is one thing that I really resonated with what you wrote in this, because this is one thing that we see a lot as like foraging is like raping the land, and instead of it's like something that all of our ancestors, every single ancestor, you know, wherever you're from, your peoples are from, foraged. And it's also like an antidote a lot to contemporary challenges of climate change and food deserts and urbanization and marginalization. It's, you know, it is really important source of nutrition and medicine. And I think and it's so nuanced, and Becky really explores this in the book, like the difference between native plants versus naturalized plants and really invasive plants. And, you know, a lot of people who are like beginners to foraging or herbalism sort of just lump it all together, and they're like, foraging is bad. And it's really like, no, actually it can be a way of controlling invasive plants or making use of the plants who are particularly opportunistic or vital. And I feel like you do a good job in the book of approaching that and just, then. So.
It's definitely my scariest chapter. I think I read it out loud to my partner, Corby, like 8 times. Like, is this good? Did I help? Like, I was very scared that I would make a mistake. And I'm sure I did. And that's part of life, is to make a mistake and go, ooh, I know better now. Let me edit that. And credit who corrected me. Thank you. So I love wild tending. I studied organic agriculture in college and soil science. And I used to work on organic farms when I met you in 2010. And I now really am lazy. I'll be 35 this year. Do not like bending down ever or lifting heavy stuff often. So gardening seems less interesting. And I really just want to throw mulch in like areas and then like put nettles in them and then be like, we're good now. So wild tending to me is where I'm going with my food practice. And that way, also, you can support foraging in your own spaces or in spaces that you live near that are like wild that you can access. So I was really influenced by Tending the Wild by, oh my gosh, I forget her name, Kat Meyer, I think. It's an excellent book by a person named Kat Anderson. Excuse me. It's in my sources. And she talks about the Western and California indigenous communities that used fire and lots of different wild tending practices to ensure access to wild food sources and cultivating them. And that's what influenced me in this chapter amongst all my amazing mentors, because I want that for Appalachia. We have so many invasive and naturalized plants. We could never eat a native plant and we would be great. And I just think that's amazing. Obviously, this book, they requested I write it so it could be used around the country. And so in certain places, I was like, ethical foraging is very testy in Colorado, or places where there's not a lot of water. It's not the same everywhere. And we can't make blanket statements about it. So this is from my chapter, Wild Tending, Stewarding Wild Plant Populations. Wild tending is a very old idea. It's the idea that rather than remove all the wild plants growing in an area and planting a garden there, you support the growth of desired plants in the places they are already growing. All of our ancestors wild tended in the diverse places where they dwelt within the bounds of their unique bioregions. Wild tending is most visible today in the places with intact indigenous land management, and in places where various groups of people are intentionally returning to a traditional land management ethic, using traditional ecological knowledge. Traditional ecological knowledge, or what is known as TEK in academic circles, is defined as a cumulative body of knowledge, practice, and belief, evolving by adaptive processes and handed down through generations by cultural transmission about the relationship of living beings, including humans, with one another and their environment. I feel like what you said, when we look at people as separate from nature, I feel like that is one of the most damaging ecological management techniques and is very Western as a mindset, whereas leave no trace. I think that's actually like super problematic. We don't have to get into the entire thing right now, but what I wanted with this book is for people to start asking questions about how can I fit in a space without causing harm or causing least harm, because we do cause harm all the time and that's okay in certain ways. And so to me, wild tending is a way to explore that question, like how do I fit in this environment, by being curious and asking a lot of questions and doing a lot of research. Thanks for asking that. But enough about me. What about you? Can I ask some questions about your book? Yes. When I got your book, I was just telling you, I opened it randomly and I opened right to the butter section, which honestly, there's not a best section of your book, but I was thrilled as a person who's mostly made out of butter. I am the dairy queen. I love your book. It is absolutely gorgeous. And you photographed the whole thing, which is, I don't know if people realize that you took all of the beautiful photos in this book.
saved maybe 3, but yeah.
They're just gorgeous. You might not be able to see it on the video, but they're absolutely stunning. And many of them are from your gardens that you've tended over the years and our friends and community. My butt is in here. It is great. I'm thrilled. This is a treasure. It's not only beautiful, but it's so full of like accessible, friendly. I felt like I was sitting with you when I was reading it. It's so gentle, friendly, non-shaming, and inviting. I really love how you language so many of the things in it. And I'm curious, just like you asked me, like what brought you to, I remember you were first starting this when we met, and I was like, oh my gosh, this seems like such a huge undertaking. What inspired you to write this?
Yeah, so I really started writing this book when I started my online school, and that sort of turned into the manual for my online school, which is like 1,700 pages. So it's actually a much bigger work than this. So it started back then, but yeah, I think my goal with the book was really just to share the possible ease of growing your own medicine and gathering abundant wild plants that grow really throughout the country, and all the things that you can do with them, and really just the beauty that that can bring to your life and to your kitchen.
It's just stunning.
Thank
you. A person who loves to make things, I'm so excited to try. I feel like I know all these things already. Like I've known Juliet, I've seen her kitchen, like I know what's in there. No, I have no idea. It's amazingly rich. There's just so much there. And I'm so curious, you know, even in one of your sections about cultivating relationships with plants. And I feel like that's one thing both our books share. Even though mine is more of a folklore history lean, I feel like the ethic of the book is about inviting people to create a relationship. And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd love to hear you read a section if your voice feels good. If you want me to read it, I'm also happy to.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I'm good.
Excellent. On cultivating a relationship on page 2.
Okay.
Oh, Flora.
Kids. In our modern era, it's easy to feel profoundly disconnected, not only from nature, but from our ancestors' sustenance and medicine. The antidote to this cultural chasm is a connection to place. This connection is a web with pulsing threads fastening you to your neighbors, garden, medicine, ancestors, and heritage, which in turn resurrects a sense of belonging, a deep knowing that you have a rightful place in the world. Imagine yourself a bright patch of cloth sewn into a vibrant quilt that stretches far into the past and deep into the future. Befriending living plants keeps me close to my roots, literally and figuratively. When I want to know more about a plant, I bring it into the garden. From there, we slowly begin the dance of plant-human reciprocity, a friendship of sorts, born of companionable silence throughout the seasons. We become acquainted as I weed around the plant's roots, pick insects from its leaves, and share water with it during dry spells. This communion ultimately brings me to a deep-seated and intimate knowledge of the medicine itself.
It's beautiful. Thank you. I'm so moved by that. I feel like that's a much more eloquent way I write very scientifically. I'm like, this happened in this year, stuff was bad, now it's different. It's just citation. You're like, that's it. Good job, I did it. I love the poetry of your writing. I felt like the stitch of the quilt in that, and I think it's so beautiful. And I wonder too, you're not from here originally, how have you felt like plants have brought you into place here?
So I grew up in Virginia, so not far from here. And so this feels like home. And I lived all over this country and beyond, and I always wanted to move to this area. It was like the card I kept in my back pocket. I really wanted to move to Asheville and to these mountains and these plants. So I think I, already had a connection to here when I moved here. But wait, so what was your question?
How do you feel like plants help you feel connectedness to this place also?
Oh.
Is it like seeing the ones from your childhood that you felt kinship with already here, or?
It's really like even beyond the plants, it's just like a deep feeling and knowing. And, there's other areas too that I feel connected to with the plants. That's one of my favorite things to do, is to travel and meet plants and reconnect with them when I go back to them. So I think, it's just like a groundedness that comes to me through being interested in the plants and getting to know them. It's like every plant friendship, like when I walk around and now, like I look at these, I look at plants and just seeing them and remembering them, and it just makes me feel grounded and connected to this area, but maybe even more importantly to this land and to myself.
I think living seasonally, that was a big focus of my book, and I love the seasonality of a lot of your recipes you share and the medicine making techniques. And I think living seasonally too, I have hundreds of herb books. I have a billion, million, jillion books and know where to put them. And a lot of herb books don't talk about seasonality and about food very much. And that's one thing I appreciate in both of these works, is we did get to kind of touch on what living consciously by being involved in seasonality can bring. And I think that's that connectedness, that feeling of place. That's what I'm always looking for. I don't know if I found that, but I think I have ideas about it. I can't claim that I found it yet, but we'll get there.
Yeah, I feel like there's more to come.
I hope so.
Yes. I think we're at the question time. Do y'all have any questions? Or Stephanie, do you want to moderate this?
Yeah, folks in the in-person audience, if y'all have questions, you can just go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll take questions. And I will go ahead and remind folks at home to type in their questions or email them if they have any. Go ahead and do that now. So don't be shy. Thank you. Excellent.
If there was something you could add to your book that you weren't able to for whatever reason, restrictions, what would it be, each of you?
Oh, well, there was this part of this, I have this chickweed 3 ways recipe, which is like chickweed crepes and a chickweed filling and a chickweed pesto. And I have this whole part I wrote to it of like, if you want to take chickweed to the prom, try to beat me to it. And for some reason, my editor thought that was not relevant. Took it out, and I was really sad about it because I was like, look, I want chickweed to be my prom date. I didn't get to go to the prom, but if I had known chickweed in my high school, we would have been like this. So that's the part that I was sad about not making.
Great answer.
Mine is not funny. Surprisingly, I wrote 15 pages about humoral theory, and they were like, "You can't put that in." They made me make it 2 paragraphs. So I was like, they won't understand humoral theory, which is the foundation of Roman and Greek medicine, which is like, and they're like, they don't need to know that. I was like, okay. So I had to let go of some humoral theory. It's not that complicated. I'm just a little verbose.
Future works, future works.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's a great question. Thank you.
Do you want to elaborate on that now, since you brought it
Humoral
up?
no. Actually, I have a little book out from Three Hands Press called Fever Tree. It's Appalachian Folk Charms Against Fever. I did many pages about humoral theory in that work through Three Hands Press. You can get online.
So while we're waiting for folks to think of more questions, I'll just ask both of you right now, if you can share what you might be working on next, or working on now, that folks can report to you.
So I am working on the largest online course on herbal medicine in the world, with a whole team of folks, and that is a project and a half, as you can imagine, with just like many hundreds of videos, and it's going to be probably, I think, at least like 2,500 pages. So that is keeping me busy. Yeah, that's what I'm working on.
Amazing. I'm not allowed to say yet, but I'm working on more things. I'm working a lot on tattooing right now. I'm trying to focus on my tattoo career. And I'll take a little break from writing in a little while. And hopefully we'll offer my hedge craft class online next year, at the end of next year, as my project. For all my people in California that email me, I love you.
Do you want to talk about your tattooing a little bit? I think it's so fascinating.
I sort of, it's super relevant, but I don't know.
It's you.
Yeah.
It's like what you do with your day.
I know, I do tattoo mostly now for my living, which is really cool, out in Marshall.
On an island.
Yeah,
She's
the
an island tattoo.
Island girl.
Who's
Yeah.
that?
Tattooer. Yeah.
Tattooer.
There's different arguments about what we're supposed to call ourselves.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, no, tattooer is awesome. But yeah, I love to tattoo plants and witch stuff on people. It's my favorite. Not surprisingly.
And you just do black.
I only do black work.
And your own work, right?
Yeah, I'll
Your
do
own-
historical images.
Okay.
No problem. I love doing historical images, but I don't do other people's artwork.
That is cool.
Yeah, I feel very lucky. I get to work with my best friend, Balin Lahore, who's my mentor, 3 years now. So I'm still a novice, but I get to draw 3 days a week for like 3 to 5 people a day, and it's really, really fun. It's wild. I can't believe how cool my life is. It's kind of messed up, but yeah, it's pretty awesome. I feel extremely grateful these days. It's not always been super fun, so it's really nice to have a long stretch of really, really good times.
Awesome. Well, I
Yeah.
think you had a hand in that.
I'll keep trying for sure. Yeah.
We do, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but we do have another audience question.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if that's okay. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if there's any particular plant that each of you, not chickweed, feels
Or Spicebush.
Hey,
feels particularly a real connection, a real bond with, and why, and you can share that with us, if it's not too personal.
that's a beautiful question.
So I'm not allowed to pick chickweed. Chickweed. I mean, it's really the only plant that I want to take on a date. I think it's really because I was one of the first plants that I really got to know in an intimate way when I was, first coming into the world of plants. And so I was like 18 and I was pretty lost and just, didn't feel connected to the earth or my ancestors and really I feel like those connections with the first plants that I met like really fastened me to the earth and gave me a purpose and something that I could really connect with, and I just like really loved eating chickweed and growing it and in a time when, and still I have to say modern day, no one really grows chickweed. I was gonna say, it's like we're the only person growing chickweed, but yeah, I would still be the only person growing chickweed. But yeah, so I think, just for that, there's like no explanation other than the feeling that I have.
We grow chickweed. It's awesome. By grow, I mean we like mulch around it. But I think sassafras for me is a big one. My sweet friend Abby Artemisia and I had an herb school for 2 years called Sassafras School of Appalachian Plant Craft, where we focused on the historical and like more folk history aspects of herbalism and crafts, including spoon carving and basket making and things like that, which was so fun. And sassafras for me is like a great poster child of Appalachian folk medicine because it's really easy to trace back the uses for some reason of this one plant or tree of its indigenous, its Black, and its European folk beliefs. And it's one of the only ones I've had not a very hard time trying to find how those things all came together. And so I think of them as like a poster child for the unique like cultural diversity of the Appalachian folk experience. Also, if you stir your soap with a sassafras stick, witches won't mess with it. If you put sassafras in the chicken coop, chickens won't get lice. If you build a ship with sassafras, it will never sink. And if you put a bag of chips of sassafras root around your child's neck, they won't get sick. There's so many beliefs about it. And it was the first over-harvested plant in Appalachia by the Spanish, who sent it all back because they also thought it cured syphilis, which it does not. But unfortunately, it does not cure syphilis. So to me, I think just it's kind of like an academic versus a feeling connection, but I think that academic foundation turned into a feeling connection. And now whenever I see sassafras, I just feel really sweet. I actually found a 5-fingered sassafras leaf. Wow. They were like melded together, and I excitedly ate it immediately. And my friend who worked at App State's botany program, who was the head of the department, was like, Jackie, you ate the cool. Why did you do that? I was like, I can't. So I do think there's a spiritual connection there as well. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that, but it's okay. It lives on in me.
You ate the unicorn.
I did. Leave it to me.
We do have time for another question. Thank you.
Did you do the artwork on the cover of your book?
I wish. It's Louisa Judd on Instagram. She's Swanbones. She's incredible. What an amazing artist. Thank you for asking.
And Patricia will post that in the chat for the at-home audience too. So as she has with all sorts of other links. So any other questions? It looks like our at-home audience is just sitting back and watching, so we don't have any more from there. Any others from our in-person audience?
I'm curious if you could share a little about your ritual influence.
My ritual influence.
Yeah, I feel like that's.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about it.
Totally. I am a terrible witch. I only like magic that has a historical precedent. I'm not interested in like intuitive ritual very much, but I still was asked to create this section of the book that had a lot of rituals in it. And I was like, there's not that many written down ones that I feel connected to. So I did my best to take rituals I knew were enacted and then made them more accessible and simple so that you could like run with your own thing. Because I'm just a jerk about that. Most people are like very open-minded and like make up their own rituals, which is normal and healthy. I'm a maniac. I don't know why, but it's like being connected to my ancestors. I'm just kind of like limit myself sometimes in my interest in certain types of magic. But I find the older I get, the less stringent I get about my beliefs and the more excited I am to like grow and change. Right? We hope. So I tried to base them all seasonally, and I tried to give ones that involve plants and crafting objects to use in magic, which is for me like a very important aspect of my craft. And that's kind of where it comes from. Thanks for asking.
So we did get one question from online, and it's a good one to end on, I think. So Kimberly says, for those of us who haven't had a chance to read the book yet, can you tell us how you define witchcraft?
Yeah. Witchcraft to me is the act of living in a cyclical and seasonal way while practicing magic, which is simply wishing for something so hard it can't help but happen. Sometimes with aid of unseen forces. I think that's how I would define it. How would you define witchcraft?
Becky.
You don't have to. I was like, I don't know if we've talked much about witchcraft in our lives together.
Yeah, I think I probably have honestly the opposite approach to you of like total chaos and just creating my own sense out of the world in the absence of being taught rituals and my own personal lineage. So just like I feel really comfortable. I feel more comfortable creating my own rituals and ideas, you know, than I do. Like I just feel really sensitive around not wanting to take other cultures' ideas. But of course, you know, it's, I think we all do that to one degree or another. Just things that work, taking them. So I think I just have a much more like fluid and creative idea. But for me, it's a lot about intentionality and gratitude and recognition of the elements and just the unseen forces that bring every miracle in my body and all of our bodies. That manifests those every day.
Somebody wrote on my Instagram, I hope this doesn't involve the devil. Why don't you buy it and find out? Write me a mean email. But anyway, I don't usually define it that way. But thank you for that question. And thanks for answering that. We'll see what else happens. I might do a best of Instagram post if I get any more weird messages.
Oh yeah, that would be good. That's a good one.
So we're at that top of the hour, and we did get started a little bit late, so I will give folks one more chance to ask a question here in the audience if you would like. Don't want anyone to feel like they missed their chance. Yes.
I have a comment more than a question. But I didn't want to take the question time up with my comment, so now plenty of time for that. I wanted to say specifically to you, Becky, like, I feel so appreciative to have you in our community, and I just feel like you're a really special person. And I think to speak to specifically what you were saying about fucking up or doing it wrong, like whenever people were commenting on what you did wrong, that's when you know you're in the right spot. You know, whenever you're in that uncomfortable place where people are saying that you didn't do it just right, I think that's when you know you're headed in the right direction.
You're so kind.
So I just really want to say, you know, I see you and I appreciate that about you, that you're willing to mess up and totally are super geeky and serious, but then also don't take yourself too seriously. I really love that about you.
Thank you. I'm just like hugging you so hard right now. If that's okay with you. You're consenting to this energetic hug. I'm sending that. Oh, that's extremely kind. I feel like I'm an ENFP. That means I never shut up, and I'm stoked to hug everyone and mildly thinking about asking for consent first. I'm like getting more clear on that boundary, but I just really appreciate that. I feel like I've made so many mistakes in life and like done so many things that like weren't that great. Now I feel more comfortable trying all the time and being like, well, no matter what, I'm going to make a mistake, and all of us are, and it's okay to like love each other through that. I think, and like hold each other. We're not perfect. We're just meat running around with electrical brains and like ghosts driving the machine, you know. So I really appreciate your extremely kind words. Thank you.
So with that, I'd like to invite both of you to share any last words you have before we say goodnight to the online audience and get to the book signing.
Thank you so much, Juliet. I was honestly floored when you agreed to do this with me because I just love you. You're such a rock star, and you've always supported me so much. And as a person that doesn't really have like strong family bonds, I'm so honored to sit next to you anywhere.
Well, it's an honor to sit next to you and to be, just a super small part of bringing your amazing book to the world, which is so needed this time. And I just have just the best, highest hopes for this book and all your creations to come.
Same. And on a note of a tear.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank y'all so much.